welcome to another episode of Hotspurs Live. And today, after that defeat, I am joined with two great guests. I'm joined with Wes. How are you today, Wes?
Yeah, the less said about that, the better, I think.
Yeah, I think that's wise. And we're also joined with Adam. How are you today, Adam?
I think the result says it all, really, doesn't it?
Yes, it's not a vibe, is it, really, today? But nevertheless,
No.
we're going to sit here and try and dissect it. So to start with, I think we're going to have to start with the lineup. And for me, I think the key point to pick up is this back four. So Wes, I want to come with you first. What are your thoughts on the way we set up at the back today?
I thought it was quite interesting, to be fair. Obviously, Jose clearly rewarding Tanganga with yet another start. I think he played quite well against City, pocketing probably another top winger in the league in Raheem Sterling. Have to admit, though, I was really, really worried seeing Sanchez and Dyer at the back, especially Sanchez, because having thought about, potentially Mikel Antonio for West Ham, starting up top, I thought that Sanchez would probably get bullied a little bit. But, it was really, really good to see Reguilón back. And actually, I thought Reggie played really, really well today. But yeah, that back four, it was a bit like, it was one of those for me, really. Like I say, it was, seeing Sanchez and Dyer, and I mean, it hasn't really filled anybody with confidence throughout the season. Could see why Tanganga started, but yeah, like I say, good to see Reggie back as well. So that's sort of what I made of it, to be fair.
No, it's a good shout, and I think a lot of Spurs fans were obviously happy to see Reggie back. Obviously, having to put up with Davies for a long time hasn't really done anybody any favours. But Adam, I want to come to you. Obviously, Wes has touched on the centre-back partnership of both Sanchez and Dyer, and I was the same. I wasn't looking forward to it. Do you know why maybe Toby was left out, or would you prefer to see Toby over either one of those two?
Well, it's not just Toby. I think Roden as well. Where's Roden? He didn't play Thursday because he's not registered. Wasn't in the team for Man City. So what's happened to him? Has Mourinho got no hope in him, no faith in him? I mean, the only mistake I can think of was he had the mistake against Liverpool. He had a little mishap against Chelsea, but I don't think he's put a foot out of place. With Toby, I always thought that Mourinho would maybe not play Toby because of his lack of pace against certain teams with Antonio, obviously very quick. West Ham have got a lot of quick wingers, but it just doesn't, like you say, it just doesn't fill you with any hope at the moment. I mean, what has Roden got to do to get into this team to start again?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, like you said, he's only really put one foot wrong, really. And what does he have to do to be able to get into this side? So that is a very good point. And obviously, we see up the top that obviously we all kind of thought we'd see Bale today at the start, and that wasn't the case. So, Wes, I know you spoke a little bit beforehand of this live. What are your thoughts on why Bale didn't start today?
Well, if I take the Bale situation as a whole, to give it some form of context, I personally have been really, really hacked off with Gareth Bale since he's come back. I think his attitude up until recently has been awful. And I look at everybody saying that Bale needs games and he needs time to show what he can do. But at the same time, I personally think Bale's had a decent amount of chances. Like, okay, he's played Europa League and FA Cup games and things like that. But in those games, probably until Thursday, he hasn't, for me, shown anything. Like, he hasn't shown potentially why he should be starting, other than the fact it's Gareth Bale. So yeah, I think his attitude for me has not been, what I would have thought of him coming back at all. Obviously, I knew that we'd get a different type of Gareth Bale, one that would play on the right hand side, drift in and things like that. But I think he's almost been a bit lazy sometimes. But like I say, until Thursday, and Thursday was probably his best performance in a Spurs shirt since returning. So yeah, I was a little bit surprised, perhaps, not to see him, because you would have thought Jose might have rewarded him. Obviously, took him off early, midweek as well, to perhaps save him for this game. But yeah, I think the whole sort of Bale situation as a whole is almost like Arsenal, what they had with Mesut Ozil, and why Ozil wasn't playing. And I think we've had that with Bale, since he's come back. It's, if Jose makes a decision, as fans and whatnot, we have to back that decision, whether we like it, agree with it or not. But it's almost like every time that Bale doesn't play or is on the bench, it's always, well, why is Gareth Bale not starting? Why is he not getting these minutes? And I think that's probably frustrated Mourinho a lot as well. But yeah, I think in terms of today's game, I think, you know, Bale was probably one of our best players when he came off the bench. He actually looked hungry. He looked like he wanted to actually be there, which I don't think we could say that earlier on in the season. But I think it's quite interesting about the comments made recently from his agent, saying that Bale's now in sort of the twilight years of his career, and, you know, potentially on the way down. But it's like, well, Bale's still 31. He's probably got another year, maybe 2 years max at the top level. But I thought those comments and the timing of those comments, I think, were very, very interesting, because, like I say, as an agent, I know we have cases with Mino Raiola especially, coming out and, you know, dishing dirt or whatnot, saying things potentially out of turn for his clients. But by and large, you don't really hear of agents speaking about their clients publicly. So yeah, I thought the timing of those comments were quite interesting, because we're all sort of, you know, speaking about Gareth Bale near enough every day, as Spurs fans. So yeah, and I think for him to come out and say that, especially when Bale's in and out of the team and struggling to get a place in, it's almost that, well, it's giving Jose now an excuse not to play him, because it's that case of, well, your agent said you finished, so why am I going to play you?
That's true, but also on the flip side, could it be that it's pushed Jose to maybe give him that chance in the second half today? And Adam, that's why I want to come to you. Do you think maybe bringing him on has forced maybe that in the next game in the Prem we'll see him play again? Because I admit with Wes, I think he was one of our best players when he came off the bench.
Yeah, he has to start in the next game. We saw on Thursday that he's bringing that bit of class back, and you could see that he's getting his attack in. The only question was at the start was his fitness, which he looks like he's getting back to now, because he's played a full half as well. But he has to start on Thursday. I'm surprised that when he actually came on, it wasn't for Lucas Moura, because we know what kind of first half Lucas Moura had. We know what happened in the second half, but that was the real shock, that he was still on the pitch.
No, I agree with that. And to be fair, at the moment, I'm trying to stay behind Jose because of obviously this golden age that we're still in all these cups. But that's the one thing that frustrates me with Jose is his subs. And I'm just going to come back to you again, Adam, on your point about Lucas Moura. So why did we see Lucas today? What were your thoughts on him?
I think we probably saw Lucas Moura today because West Ham have got the running track, and Lucas Moura is known for running a lot. We know that. Maybe he picked up the wrong sport. Maybe he should have took on rugby, because he seems to run directly into people. Maybe he would have been better at that, but I don't know. Maybe it's his energy and he's tracking back. We know Jose likes his defensive-minded players that will track back and try and win the ball, but I just don't think he's got as many goal involvements. He should have started Bale today.
No, that's true, and it is very infuriating seeing Lucas. Obviously, because on Thursday he did wonders, managing to take on everyone. But then, obviously, today that wasn't going to work because we know what he's like. He likes to run into people, and also shots as well. I think he did actually try and clear this London stadium today, just with the bar. And the same with you, Wes. I mean, we've touched on Lucas Moura. I'd like to pick out on Lamela, because for me, I didn't know whether Lamela would start today because I thought he would have probably got sent off, but he did start. What were your thoughts on Lamela today?
Coco, he divides opinion, doesn't he? Yeah, I think me and my dad kind of have a little running joke every game that he plays on, like, what minute he's going to get booked, because he just loves a tackle, Eric Lamela. Lamela, for me as a player, is so frustrating. And I think every Spurs fan will probably agree with that. But I think there's at times today, like, you could listen, I can never fault Lamela's attitude and his commitment to the cause and everything like that. The things that as a fan you would want to see in a player, I don't think you can ever, take that away from Lamela. I think it's the actual bits that, in terms of quality and things like that, that perhaps let him down at times. I'm pretty sure Levy's got him on a touch bonus as well or something, because he has to take like 150 bloody touches every time he has the ball. But I think that as well slows our game down so much, especially when we're trying to counter attack. So yeah, he's frustrating, but he gives 100% and stuff like that. I mean, as a fan, that's a bare minimum, I suppose, that you ask for. But I think at the same time, he's got some qualities, and we see it in flashes. It's just not consistent. And it's quite surprising that he's getting a little bit of a run in the side, because he usually only comes around once a year. He's like Santa, isn't he? Bless him, with all his injuries and stuff. So yeah, no, I was a little bit surprised perhaps that Lamela played again. Obviously, he's played a lot recently. He's had, his usual amount of injuries in a season. So, I mean, for me, I would have probably started Delia, because I think Deli did well in midweek as well. But yeah, Lamella's he's just vibes, I suppose. He's just there, isn't he?
Vibes and ball rolls.
Literally, soul roll FC, I think, is Eric Lamela. But I think again he did all right today, and I could sort of understand a little bit why he got taken off at half time. We know he's got these moments where he just flies into people and tackles people, and obviously ultimately he was on a booking anyway, and whatnot. So yeah, I could kind of see that change. But yeah, I think in the first half he was trying to progress the team forward. I just think at times he just takes too many touches where you're watching it and you're like, potentially, slide him in. It could be Kane, it could be Son, but he takes that extra touch. Then that allows the defenders to get back in and stuff. And then that opportunity is almost gone. So yeah, that's probably what I'd sum up with Eric Lamela, to be fair.
That's the thing. I think that's the problem with both Lucas and Lamela. You see him managing to take all these dribbles. And don't get me wrong, it's quite nice to actually see players drive with the ball for once. But then you're thinking to yourself, hang on, mate, you need to slip the ball through now because that chance has just gone begging. So it is very frustrating. I mean, let's have a look at this from Sean. Do you reckon Bergwijn would have done much better than any other winger today? Amount of chances we had. What do you reckon, Adam? What do you think on Sean's take? Do you think we maybe should have given Bergwijn a little chance today?
I prefer Bergwijn over Moura, but again, it's just another winger that doesn't really provide that much with the crosses and the goals that they should be. We had a lot of chances today, I think overall the finishing stats was like 4 shots on target throughout the whole game and 19 shots off target. So where are all these shots going to? Why, like, Bergwijn might have done better, but it was that first half was just terrible. But they couldn't create anything. I think the first shot on target came back the 41st minute, 42nd minute, and that's just not good enough if you're going to try and win a game.
No, exactly. And that's the thing. And like we've touched on, Bergwijn obviously had that wonderful goal against Man City. And then since then, we haven't really seen much of him going forward. Now, is that because maybe whereas Jose likes to have these defensive-minded players and maybe he's drilled into Bergwijn that you need to track back?
I think that's quite an interesting point, actually, because I think out of all of probably the wingers or wide players that we've got, I often see Bergwijn the deepest out of all of them. And he's probably one that I would say is really bought into that defensive, do your shift for the team probably more than the others. But I think that has probably hindered him going the other way. So it might be that actually, okay, because he's starting a little bit deeper, that he's then, when we are counter-attacking, he's got to then, sprint forward like 60, 70 yards. And then he's got to do the same back again. And that takes a lot of energy. But I think that's probably why his attacking output is so low, because I think whenever I've watched us with Bergwijn and Son, it's almost like Bergwijn compensates for Son in the sense that Bergwijn will, do that defensive side, whereas Sonny's allowed to kind of drift and roam a little bit. He might even be sort of alongside Kane and then drift out perhaps to the left-hand side. So I think, I like Bergwijn as a player, but I don't know if he's being used correctly in an attacking sense, because I think when he was at PSV, he was very much, in off the left, and doing his bit there. But he's come in at Tottenham and he's playing on the right and obviously asked to do a completely different role. But I don't know if that role is perhaps hindering him going the other way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And obviously, we have to kind of highlight on the goals we conceded today. And we all kind of know it's individual errors from one person. And I'd like to pick up on what Light says here. He says about Mourinho's press conference, I actually haven't seen yet, but he's saying that he cannot resolve these problems himself. So is that, Adam, pointing the finger directly at the defence, do you believe?
It's clear we've got defensive errors. I mean, you always see these jokes on football Twitter about when's a penalty going to come for Liverpool, when's a penalty going to be scored by Bruno. Maybe us Tottenham fans should start a new one, which is defensive error bingo, and we'll start guessing which minute it's going to come, because there's just no confidence at the moment with this team. Set pieces, corners, anything there. You see West Ham are winning them. We just have no defensive force at all whatsoever. You just don't trust the centre backs, do you? What we came on to earlier, what do the other centre backs have to do? They're sitting back watching this and thinking, how am I not getting in this team?
No, exactly that. And it's like Jay's just pointed out here. I mean, no manager comes in to fix the fence. You're a clown if you think otherwise. And I agree to that to a sense. They're probably sat there squirming as I say this. But is there maybe Jose's not managing to get the best out of them? I mean, I'm just trying to put a flip on it and try and make it positive. But what do you think, Wes? Could Jose potentially get any more out of this defence than what he's already got?
Well, let's look at, say, the defence. If we have Serge Aurier, Dyer, Alderweireld, Sanchez, Davis, that was those five, believe it or not. I know you could add in perhaps Danny Rose, who we know that Jose's bombed out. Maybe Danny Rose was actually making a point in the documentary when he said that, there's players that haven't been the greatest in training and haven't been playing well, yet still get picked. I think now that's come to light, especially because of the way we're defending. And a lot of people are kind of siding with Danny Rose on that and saying, no, Danny Rose, you were right, because, we can see it. We can see it for ourselves now. Whereas I think before we perhaps couldn't. But if I look at, say, those six, they all got to a Champions League final. So suddenly, 18 months down the line, they're being ridiculed every week. Now, obviously, you can add in the fact we've lost Vertonghen, who I think has been a massive miss at the back for us with his presence, his calmness, and things like that. But like I say, six of the back line were, in a Champions League final, and all right, we got there hook or by crook, but again, like I say, Champions League finalists, and we were actually consistent in terms of staying in the top four and being, as close to winning a league, I think, as anybody certainly in recent years has ever seen. So it's interesting. I think, has Jose actually adapted to the players that he's got? Because, you look at, all right, he's worked with world-class players at pretty much every club he's been at. So he perhaps doesn't have to drill them as much because he knows that they are of a certain ability. But when he's coming at Tottenham, these players aren't all of us. They're not the top bracket of player. They're perhaps that step or two steps below. So he's got to drill them a little bit more. Evidence would suggest from what we're watching that isn't happening on the training pitch. So I don't know if it's just a case of us just going back to pure basics and whatnot, almost, try and keep clean sheets and then, try and nick games. But then obviously we did that and it still hasn't worked. So I'm really, really unsure as to whether if it's the players that are just consistently letting them down. Like, no coach, I'm a coach myself, and no coach can ever legislate, ever, at any level and at any age group, you can never legislate for individual errors. But there's something you can do to address those. And when you train as much, perhaps, as Tottenham do in terms of every day, there's multiple opportunities for you to address and fix it. But it looks like it just hasn't been addressed, unfortunately, for us. And it's showing. It showed again today. Even on Thursday, it showed. It's just happened all throughout the season, I think.
That's the thing. There's no real escaping it at the minute. But this is the thing that infuriates me. Someone's mentioned it in the comments. I can't find it now. But it was something to the fact that, but why is Jose so persistent on playing the likes of Dyer and Sanchez? And that's the thing, Adam. Where do you stand on it? I mean, I know you've touched on Rodon. Would you prefer to just throw the young'uns in and see how they perform? Because at the minute, you're just thinking to yourself, how much longer can we go on with Jose trying to back Dyer?
It's interesting with those two because every Premier League team will have their strongest centre-back pairing. So what Tottenham fans, if you ask a Tottenham fan, what would you say is your strongest centre-back pairing? Does Mourinho even know his strongest centre-back pairing at the moment? This is why he's still trying to rotate. We're in February, almost into March, and he's still rotating his centre-backs throughout the games. Does he still not know? It's tough. It's tough watching at the moment with them two at the back. It really is. You just don't know where to go from here, really.
But it's true, and like we saw today, obviously the first goal, I'm still in my ways that it was down to Dyer, because I'm not being funny to you. Okay, there was a bit of build-up play where you could argue is Reguilon fouled in that build-up play, but anyway, the ball comes in and Dyer just kind of watches it and allows the ball to come across him, and Antonio's there to put a foot on it. So, Wes, I want to come to you. Is this again why we shouldn't see Dyer anymore? Is this where we should see him getting benched?
Listen, Eric Dyer is possibly the only centre half I've ever seen that does not want to jump and get off the floor to attack a football. It's ridiculous. Like, I wish I was a performance analyst right now, because I could clip a minimum of 10 goals that we've conceded where Dyer doesn't jump or is either too late jumping with his opponent and they've gone on and scored. Today's one with the first goal, my goodness. The worst bit about it is, Hollie, is that as that ball is on that right-hand side, he's dropped back in. He feels Antonio. He gets his arm out and then feels Antonio, so he knows he's there. Then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, the ball's in and Dyer's nowhere near it and he's looking at Tanganga. It's like, no, you felt the striker there. Take some responsibility within that back line. You're the senior player, if you like, within that defensive pairing or that defensive unit. Take some responsibility, go and attack the ball. So, yeah, I think Dyer living up to his name, basically. He's been awful. Was never overly convinced with him at centre-back. I think the only time perhaps he's got away with it is perhaps our last season at White Hart Lane, where we more often than not played with the back three and Dyer was the right-sided centre-back with Toby and Jan next to him. I don't know if it was because he had Toby and Jan alongside him that could help him get through a game. But, yeah, I think at times, this season's shown that he needs a sustained period out of the team because, I'm speaking to different people and it's like, well, Jose can't coach individual errors. No, but what he can do and what he can affect is perhaps taking Dyer out the firing line for 5 or 6 games and then look to integrate him back in. Where by doing that, he then makes a point with Dyer of like, right, okay, you need to kind of buck your ideas up a little bit and show me why I've put so much faith in you. But I'm just going to take you out the firing line for a minute because you're costing us. And I'm going to go with either Sanchez or Alderweireld or Roden and Alderweireld or some, whichever pairing that Jose wants to pick this week. But yeah, I think Dyer's, for me, has to get taken out of that firing line just to save not only himself, but the team as well. Because I think Dyer's coming in for however much criticism, which is probably fair because of the level of performance that he's putting in. Now, I know that players don't go out to have a bad game, but you can't keep having faith with somebody that is just consistently letting you down. And it's almost like, look, I'm backing you to the hills here. Like, give me something back. But I think, yeah, like I say, take Dyer out the firing line and we'll see what happens, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how many more times has he got to do something wrong for Jose to keep him in there? That's the thing I'm really struggling to work out at the moment. And I think it was the audacity as well, like you said, to turn around and Tanganga to blame him when in actual fact he knew he was there. That's the thing that really infuriated me. But nevertheless, obviously, we move on to the second goal as well. And I don't want to call this the anti-Dyer show, but I feel like today it's warranted. So, Adam, what were your thoughts on the second goal?
Well, first of all, I thought us conceding in the first 5 minutes couldn't get any worse. But then, Tottenham had this because it got worse. We conceded in the second minute, in the second half instead. Not just Dyer, but Sanchez as well. When Lingard's running through, you watch it and he kind of looks to shove him. But it's the weakest challenge I've ever seen. We've seen Sanchez absolutely floor people where he's been confident trying to win the ball on the occasion. And this looks like a tiny little nudge. If he knocks Lingard there, that goal doesn't happen. So they're both at fault for that second goal, unfortunately.
And again, just like Alan's pointed out, it's this back partnership that I think is actually maybe stemming as our backbone at the moment. And because it's so weak, it's causing the rest of the team to kind of falter. I mean, obviously, there is talk about Lloris being not what he's used to be. And I think to an extent, maybe we could question him. But I also think this lack of confidence that's running in the team is something that isn't obviously helping Lloris. So, Wesley, I want to go with you. Obviously, in recent weeks, we've seen Lloris have a bit of a blinder here and there. I mean, today, was he at fault at the goal for it coming out of his hands? I don't know. But what are your thoughts on Lloris as well?
Hugo. Well, I watch him sometimes and I think he's been back on the vino, to be fair. I think, he pulls off. The thing that frustrates me with Lloris is he'll drop a clanger, potentially like he did today, question marks over him with that goal against Liverpool and, in other games, City, especially last weekend, but then he'll pull off a world-class save like he did on Thursday. So that Hugo's still got something there. But the thing that frustrates me is he's dropping these clangers and it's like he's been a world-class goalkeeper. Like when we signed him, I was buzzing because he had his pick of any top European club. He was that good at that time. I think his role has changed over the years. Obviously, when he first come in under AVB and show it, he was like that sweeper keeper, and it was almost like that position was being redefined, if you like. But then as the years have gone on, it seems he's got deeper and deeper and deeper, and he hasn't flown out as much. I don't know if that's because of age or anything like that, but it's quite interesting that Pochettino, with the way that we played, he still wasn't that sweeper keeper. But I've said it to people before. I think perhaps at that time where we transitioned from the old stadium into Wembley, noticing then a slight drop off. But I say a slight drop off, a massive drop off in Lloris. And I said to my dad at the time, I was like, look, I think we need a new keeper. And everybody goes on about keeper longevity and things like that. And I think even I did see someone somewhere, mention they'd get Kasper Schmeichel in, but Kasper Schmeichel's the same age as Hugo Lloris. So we're not going to get any longevity out of signing Kasper Schmeichel. But yeah, I think Hugo's definitely regressed as the years have gone on. He's not sort of maintained and sustained his levels of being that top class goalkeeper that we initially signed. But yeah, I think his errors are becoming a bit too frequent. I think his distribution over the years has got worse. Like he couldn't clip a fullback or anything like that, especially when we were playing at Wembley. I think that was really getting highlighted a lot. But I think with the way that we play now, we're not so much a team that wants to progress through the pitch and play out using our centre backs. But I think that's helped Hugo a little bit with his distribution because he doesn't go as long, or he doesn't play short. Sorry, he goes longer a lot more. Just seeing a comment there. If only we had a good keeper out on loan. Yeah, I think Gazza's probably for me. Gazzaniga's probably all right. He's done okay, but I always sensed him. He was a backup goalkeeper anyway. I mean, he does deserve a statue for fly kicking Marcus Alonso, to be fair to him. But that's just my take on Hugo. I'd love to see like a new, younger goalkeeper coming in, but they're very few and far between, I think. And trying to find one will be very, very difficult.
I mean, I've got Parksy and Rems in the chat. Rems is saying that he prefer Joe Hart over Lloris at the moment, and Jade's saying Joe Hart is a saviour. I mean, firstly, I think both those not great comments, in the fact that it's so to Joe Hart I just don't like about him. Don't get me wrong, he's won stuff, and I think that's what Jose's tried to install in the team, and the fact that we need a room that's full of winners, shall we say, in the changing rooms. But for me, I wouldn't see Joe Hart over Lloris, sadly, Rems. But nevertheless, we're going to try and keep it a little bit positive and talk about Reguilon, Adam. So I want to come to you on Reguilon. Obviously, we know Davies is not the great person, and Reguilon coming back is brilliant. So I want to have your take on Reguilon today.
It was good to see Reguilon back. It was a shame to see him taken off, but I think that may have been down to the booking it received. But it was that pace down the left. I mean, Ben Davies just lacks that pace down the left. And if he gets caught out up the field, he's not going to get back in time. Whereas Reguilon has got that pace that if we do lose, break down a challenge, then he will track back and he will get back in positions. I'm a big fan of Reguilon.
Yeah, no, and I think that's good. And like Rems has pointed out here, I think the combination of Reguilon managing to actually beat a man and put a decent cross in over Davies is something that's to look forward to in the future. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, we can obviously talk about our goal. I mean, we've touched on Lucas today, and he had to be the man, Adam, that managed to get on the goal sheet. So, Wes, I want to come to you. What do you make of that set piece? We've actually scored from a corner today.
Yeah, not going to lie. I think after the second one went in, I did lose quite a bit of interest because I definitely lost my head when that second one went in at the state of the defending, because I'm not going to lie, the teams that I coach, and I coach junior teams like under 11, under 13s, and I'm thinking to myself, if they defended like that, I'd have been on them. I'd have said, like, what are you doing? Whether that's the right way to go about it or not, I don't know. But yeah, I think second half it was almost like we had a go, which is always a positive. But it just seems like we have to concede before we start playing. We have to hit 70, 75 minutes before we actually then take the initiative to the opposition. I think, unless, the Everton game was probably an example of us going at it probably from minute one right the way through, and we still come off the back of a thrilling game to watch, but we still come off the back of a defeat. So yeah, not gonna lie, I did lose a little bit of interest, but it was good to see, like, second half that we actually had a little bit of fight and a little bit of determination and a little bit of something to try and at least get something out of the game. I think we've had a couple of good chances second half where we probably should have scored, but yeah, I think that's kind of my take on it, really.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we had so many opportunities and we just couldn't find the back of the net. I think I'd also like to highlight on Harry Kane, because I thought Harry Kane today, he didn't look his normal self, Adam. Do you think that's because maybe his injury at the moment that he had a previous weeks ago is actually still playing on his mind? Or do you think he's not 100% match fit yet?
He could have been rushed in for the last few results. He knows that he's going to be the best finisher at the club. Interestingly, you mentioned Kane. I also thought Son today as well. I can't remember him having a shot on target today. Obviously, I know he was probably out on the left most of the game, but I don't remember him having a shot on target at all. And he's been one of our massive influential players this season, him and Kane. So it's a tough one for both of them, really.
Yeah, it was. And the thing for me that I noticed throughout the game was this movement off the ball. I think there was a lack of it. I mean, we saw Ndombele try and get in, and you can see at times he's having a go at people around him. So I think that was something else that probably wasn't helping. And like you said, Son was probably isolated out wide as well. So going forward, obviously, we did lose the game 2-1, and it wasn't great. But where could we go from this, do you reckon, Wesley? Do we need to try and get this game done with on Wednesday and go from there? Would you like to see maybe something happen differently in the back? Do we give the likes of Joe Rodon a chance at the back?
Obviously, Rodon can't play midweek, so yeah, that's a bit unfortunate.
Out the window.
Yeah, that one's out the window, unfortunately. But I think the game in itself, well, I think the tie is, there's still, I mean, any Spurs fan will know that we're still not comfortable. We're 4-1 up and we're still not comfortable. It's just the way we've been brought up. Obviously, we've got this Spursy tag and everything like that. But I'd quite like to see something perhaps a little bit different, maybe a little bit refreshing. You know, I think I even said on Thursday that I wouldn't have minded to see Jamie Bowden come on. You know, a player that's highly thought of at the club. Saw recently he's been likened to Michael Carrick and stuff like that. So, yeah, perhaps obviously the fringe players will probably get a bit of a go. But, yeah, throw in a couple of young players. You know, Jose has done it and it's worked with Tanganga. So I'm not saying that everyone is going to work out, because I mean, if that does happen, then obviously brilliant, but I can't see it for the life of me. But, yeah, just give some of these, you know, younger players a bit of a run just to see what they're like, but still have the backup there for the worst case scenario, just in case it doesn't quite go to plan. But, you know, I think even if we draw the game midweek, you know, more than likely still go through, depending on how many goals are scored, I think. But yeah, you know, I think we're in a commanding position with that Europa League tie. So, and obviously being 4-1 up now, I think he can afford to rest the likes of Kane and Højbjerg, who I think's looked absolutely knackered in the last few games, because I think he's Mr. Dependable, don't get me wrong, but he needs a rest. Like, he's looking knackered. And I think that's why mistakes are coming from him. Like, he's giving the ball away cheaply, which has been unlike him by and large for the majority of the season. You know, he's making desperate tackles and desperate fouls that he doesn't necessarily need to. But I think that's just because he's knackered and he's, you know, he wears his heart on his sleeve, Højbjerg, and I love that. But he's trying to be here, there and everywhere, and perhaps he doesn't need to be. But I think he's compensating for perhaps those around him in a defensive aspect. But yeah, just give some of the fringe players a bit of a go, see what they're like. You know, if we put Captain Scarlett up top, he might bag again. You know, give Vinicius a run. I mean, what does that poor guy have to do to get a game? Like, even if Kane's injured, it's like, you know, he can't get a look in, which is a shame, because I think we've cried out for a half decent striker to be either a backup to Kane or play alongside Harry Kane. We finally get one, and it's like he's just there, which is really, really annoying. But yeah, like I say, perhaps give some of these fringe players some minutes, and, you know, throw one or two youngsters in, if they're allowed to be in there, if they're registered or not. I'm not 100% sure in terms of perhaps playing some of our younger players. But yeah, just switch it up a little bit, and you know, because I think the league is a priority mainly for any club. But I think obviously with our position, it might go the other way, and actually Jose might look at it and go, well, we're ninth, X amount of points away from the top four. Let's just go for the Europa League. I think he did that towards the end of his season at United when they sort of won the Europa League. So it wouldn't shock me if there was a similar approach, but I'd just love to see some of the fringe players get a bit of a run and whatnot.
That's the thing. I mean, at the moment with our league form, I feel like all our eggs are slightly going to be put in that basket for Europa. And I think in terms of going forward, I think as much as it pains me to say, I feel like someone mentioned earlier about top four. I feel like top four is slowly getting out of our reach. And I think the only way to bring UCL football to Tottenham is to win that Europa League. So in terms of that, Adam, obviously we spoke about wanting to see the young'uns and things like that. Do you think this is the way forward? Do you think that maybe our hopes in the league are slowly slipping down the table, or do you think we could possibly still go on a run? I mean, there's still quite a few games left. Do you think because this Premier League table is so unpredictable at the moment during the crisis that we're in, do you think we could potentially still try and push on in the league?
I think today was a must-win game. Today was the big one because the next 3 games after that is Burnley, Palace and Fulham. And in any other season, we'd look at it and we'd think, yeah, we could get 9 points. But now you've got to play a team where Burnley, we know how they play. They're going to sit back and they're going to defend. Fulham, Scott Parker looks like he's turning it around there. Maybe they'll start getting themselves out of trouble. And Palace, well, we know what happened in the last game. We ended up getting a point because once again, we conceded late. So it'll be close to see if top 4. It just depends what the other teams are doing now. There's so many teams at the top that are flying. You've got your Leicester that just can't seem to be stopped at the moment. I think Leicester will be nailed on. It'll be the 4th spot, I think. The top 3 will be decided already. It'll be that 4th spot that a lot of teams will be fighting for. So there could be a chance, but we'd really have to pull a nice run of results together towards the end.
I like that you mentioned that today was a must-win because there's loads of jokes running around on Twitter and things about this is a cup final. And to be honest, I think today's game was a cup final for both teams in the sense that there was a lot riding on it. It'd be a chance for us to turn things around and a chance for West Ham to pull away. And unfortunate for us, West Ham came on top. And that's another thing I kind of want to point out on. I mean, we've mentioned Højbjerg already, and we mentioned this in the last episode, that I think Højbjerg is slowly running out of his form because he has to hold that back line, because I feel like he's here, there and everywhere. We obviously saw him against Everton giving away that penalty, obviously because he clipped him by accident. But do you think, Wes, it's because Sissoko can't predominantly play that position when Højbjerg's not there? Do you think, like you said, he is Mr. Dependable?
Oh, Moussa Sissoko. Oh. I've been very, very vocal on Moussa Sissoko previously. For those people that are watching that know me, they know that Moussa Sissoko is not my favourite player at all. I think I've even gone on record saying that probably his level is about Crystal Palace, and that's about it. So I've been very, very critical of Sissoko, but I think in this Jose team, because I think Mourinho's almost had like 2 teams in 2 parts in his spell. So there was probably obviously the one he took over and inherited, and now this one. I think obviously when we were flying, Sissoko and Højbjerg were quite pivotal in terms of what we were doing and pivotal to our success in terms of us getting up to, obviously top of the league in December and, every fan getting a bit giddy, myself included. But yeah, I think it's quite interesting as well because Sissoko's come out and said in an interview that the style of play is a little bit different and, we should have been picking up points in certain games, and all of a sudden you've just seen him get phased out of the team a little bit. That in itself, I think, speaks volumes. Sissoko for me just kind of runs about a bit. That's literally it. He's 31 years old, can't control a football to save his life and stuff like that. But I think in the summer, personally, I think we need to get a central midfield player, almost a box-to-box type of midfield player that could also complement Højbjerg. Because I know Ollie Skip's doing absolute bits in the Championship for Norwich at the minute, but do I see Skip and Højbjerg as a midfield duo? Probably not. I'd probably say Skip is back up to Højbjerg, and I think that's probably a fair kind of comparison to make. But yeah, Sissoko for me, he just doesn't do it. I think, it sums it up when I don't know if any of you guys were there or remember the game, but we played Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League at Wembley, and he could not trap a bag of cement, the geezer. Yeah, he still bagged 90 minutes, and I'm still to this day confused as to how that happened because he was awful. So yeah, I've said kind of all I can really on Sissoko. To be honest, I don't think he's good enough. He's nowhere near the level that we need. But having said that, he did have Jose seemed to depend on him. So, especially in the first instance, I think he gave a little bit of a balance. Obviously, we saw in games like City and Arsenal that we almost defended with a back six, and Sissoko was happy to do that. I think he does show good energy in terms of getting up and down the pitch, but on the ball, he's horrifically bad. Like, he's awful, and I'm surprised we've still got him, to be fair, because I think especially after his first season that he had with us, I would have probably shipped him off and probably said that as a write-off and see you later. But I think fair play to him. He has sort of turned his Tottenham career around, but then I don't think the bar was very high. You could almost argue that with Serge Aurier as well. So, yeah, like I say, I just think the balance in the midfield has got lost a little bit. Maybe if Lo Celso ever decides to come back from injury and stop being Eric Lamela 2.0, we might see Lo Celso and Højbjerg in there as a midfield duo. Or I think Ndombele's obviously predominantly played as a number 10 this season. So with him dropping a little bit, I don't know if he's getting used to dropping a little bit with that added responsibility there. But maybe as Ndombele, as he perhaps plays there a little bit more, we might see a better balance in the midfield.
No, that's true. And I like that you pointed out Skip, because like you said, I don't think that combination of Højbjerg and Skip would work. It's more like Jay said, it'd be like a switch, be able to switch them out each game. But I also want to point out to you, Adam, about Ndombele and Højbjerg. There's rumours going around that they're both going to be the next Dembele and Wanyama. Do you see that combination working, or do you think, like Wes says, he needs to play further forward?
No, I could see that working. I think it would replace. He is that Wanyama form, isn't he? That he's your enforcer in midfield, but he'll just try and mop up any loose ball. And he's got we've seen he's got an eye for a pass as well, so he can thread those through. And Ndombele is you just watch him and you think, how have you still got the ball? You've turned 3 players inside out, and even when he's on the floor, he's still got the ball. Sometimes they could work together. That could be that replacement, but then no one's ever going to be as good as Moussa Dembele, are they? We've all still got a soft spot for Moussa Dembele.
Greatest of all time. Greatest of all time.
That is very true. And it's interesting as well to see this comparison, because I still don't think he's reached that levels yet. But like all good things, we need to give them time. And it's just interesting that people make this comparison, because like you said, I could feel it working, but today I don't think it was there. But Wes, do you think that's because today no one was really in it in the first half?
Well, it looked like no one was in it. That's for sure. I think we mentioned before about a real lack of movement, and that was so evident in the first half. I think there's times when Ndombele and Højbjerg are on the ball, and they're looking for players to give it to, and there's absolutely nothing. And it was almost like we were in that rinse and repeat kind of motion where Højbjerg or Ndombele would get on the ball, look for a pass forward, nothing there, turn, play back to either Sanchez or Dyer, and then we'd go back to Lloris, and then it's a punt forward up the pitch. And it seemed to be that was the way that we were going, and it was really frustrating. So I don't know, perhaps if Sissoko would have played and Ndombele plays slightly higher, that at least he's got an option. They've got that option and that pass forwards into a player who's, in between the lines and in those pockets of spaces, to then get on the ball and feed good through passes to Kane or Son or whoever was out on the right hand side, if it was Lucas or Lamela, but obviously one of those would have probably dropped out. It was annoying to see a real lack of urgency and desire to want the ball. I know people talk about players wanting to be brave, but we usually associate that with, putting your body on the line, last-ditch tackles and things like that. Being brave is also getting on the ball where, your team's under pressure and, there's players around you. I think that's a bravery in itself. But I think there was also a lack of combinations between the two of them. I think, I recall one scenario off the top of my head. Højbjerg's received the ball and he's tried to play a pass into Ndombele in between 2 West Ham players and nearly sent Ndombele to hospital, bless him, because the pass was horrific. And, it's just little bits like that are uncharacteristic from Højbjerg, especially given how he's played for us this season. But yeah, I think I alluded to it. Perhaps bringing Sissoko back gives that better balance. But yeah, in the first half, it was really frustrating that nobody wanted to take that responsibility, get on the ball, make things happen. So yeah, I think Lo Celso coming in. I mean, Gio loves to get on the ball as well, and try and make things happen. But yeah, it's obviously he's injured, so we can't really have him. But yeah, like I say, really frustrating that nobody wanted to get on the ball in that first half. And credit, I think, to Bale in that second half because he was the one that was trying to take the game to the opposition. So I've got to give him credit for that, even though I've given him a bit of stick earlier on.
That's the thing, Liz. I like the way that you've mentioned that everybody seemed to be hiding behind the ball, because I think that was right. At times, it looked like players were playing hide and seek behind West Ham players because there was just lack of movement everywhere. It was so static. And that's the thing I want to come to you, Adam, because it seemed to me that at times players just tend to be doing them themselves. Like they tend to be doing stuff that they thought they could do all by themselves, like the likes of Lucas, the like of Lamela. And does that to you sometimes worry you, because of the fact that at the moment we're not seeing these combination plays at the moment that we have seen prior to the start of the season? Obviously towards in that high point during Christmas there was lots of combination plays, and now it's just kind of gone dead. What do you reckon we need to build on from this? Is it something that we need to try and fix at training, or is it just because morale at the moment is so low in the team, it seems, especially on the pitch?
I think confidence is extremely low, but I think since the results have been dropping off, you've missed that transition from defence to attack. There isn't anything. We've seen it before with like Alderweireld. He can ping a ball long and that will create an attack, but there is nothing at the moment. I mean, last week against Man City, we had, I think it's 3 shots on target all game, and there was no link there. There was nothing. There was no balance between the two. How do you get from one end to the pitch? And the players just look completely lost. But it's interesting that Wes has mentioned Giovanni Lo Celso, because I think he will be someone that will create that play. He will link up a bit more, and we'll hopefully see a bit more positivity in people creating an attack, really.
That's the thing. It's so. I mean, we touched on this just before we came into this about how our attack is strong, but our defense is just nothing. I can't remember what you said, Wes. What was the analogy you said? So
it's almost like you've got a Ferrari at the top end and a Nissan Micra at the back, but you're not fueling the Ferrari. Like it's almost like you've got this wonderful car, if you like, but you're not giving it the juice that it needs to perform, and that's exactly kind of how it feels at the minute. We've spoken about obviously the individual errors, but then at the same time, there's nobody in that team that's going, right, hold on a minute, let's just sit tight for 10, 15 minutes and, perhaps not obviously have as many attacks, if you like, but we've just got to try and stay in the game and, just be that little bit more solid. And then, our time will eventually come to penetrate and attack and obviously put some chances away. But I don't see any real leaders out there that just goes, look, lads, just keep it tight for 5-10 minutes and just almost ride out a wave of pressure.
That's the thing. It's just all over the place at the moment. And I want to just touch on Dele Alli, because we didn't see him start. Obviously, he had a good game against Wolfsburg in the week. But Adam, do you think him coming on was the right move? Because obviously I thought there was instances where he could have just controlled the ball and played it easy. And there was one instance towards the end of the game where he decides to flick it randomly again. So do you think Dele could possibly be the answer to try and save the season, or do you think it's dead in the water now?
I am surprised that Dele came on. I thought we might have seen Carlos Vinicius coming on to try and get a bit more attack, a bit more goal influences going on. But we've always said it with Dele. He'll get the ball and he'll try the extravagant. He'll try the flick or something like that. Yeah, it worked for him. He had that amazing season when he was scoring goals left, right and centre. He won Young Player of the Year. But it's weird because he has got that talent. We can see it. It's just in this team, you just don't know if he's gonna fit. Is he gonna bring that back, or have we really seen the best of Dele? Like, what is the situation with him? It's a tough one.
I mean, it is. You think, obviously, we don't know his mindset. We don't know what's going on with him. But you think in a player like Dele Alli, he'd want to prove himself in a game like this. And I feel like, again, today, it was just trying to be too clever, like you said, Adam. And it's very irritating. I think maybe, Wes, do you reckon maybe we should just use him as a squad player in the Europa? Or do you think, again, it's another wonderful word, this let's give him time sort of thing, that lovely phrase. Do you think we need to give him a bit more time in the Prem, or do you think his numbers are up, his days are up, basically?
Well, I hope his days aren't numbered. Obviously, I'm from Milton Keynes. Dele Alli's from Milton Keynes. He come through at my local club. He's then signed for the team that I've supported since I was a boy. So I've got, a real kind of attachment, not only to Dele, but his journey that he's had. This is the first time in his career, because followed him pretty closely, but it's the first time in his career he's been really out of a team and out of a side. Dele's mentality is one where I think he loves to sort of prove people wrong. I think he's done it for the majority of his career. I wouldn't say that he's finished by any stretch of the imagination. We've got to remember that Dele Alli's still only 24 years of age. Like, he's still got plenty of time. It's just annoying to see the level that he was at and the heights he was reaching to, basically being cast aside and, having to make deal with cup games against Marine, with all due respect to Marine. Listen, I think when Jose came in, Dele was one of the first names on the team sheet every week, alongside probably Dyer in the first instance. And you saw, Dele getting in the box, getting those goal contributions that we were so used to, and knew it was like, okay, is Dele perhaps back to what we were used to? Because I think certainly in the last 18 months under Pochettino, things had changed. But I think that was due to the fact that we actually changed shape under Pochettino. So he wasn't very much that 4-2-3-1 anymore. We played a lot of a diamond. Dele was sort of on the left-hand side of a diamond, and I don't think it really suited him as much. But yeah, obviously I'd love Dele to turn it round. I've got the belief that he will, because I think he's got the mentality to turn it round as well. And I think that's key, because I think if certain players are getting treated in a similar way, I think that they'd either just go under or they're going to come out the other side. I think we've seen with Ndombele, he was almost cast aside by Jose. I think we even saw it in the documentary as well. And all of a sudden, Tongi's flavour of the month every month. Do you know what I mean? So, I think Dele. Listen, I think every Spurs fan kind of wants Dele to do well because of what we've seen before. But yeah, for me, certainly give him a go, because I think he offers something completely different. You're looking today, and I know state of the game is completely different, but I think if Dele starts, usually he's one that stretches play. So I think certainly against lower teams in the league, I'm saying like Dele could obviously play against the top teams, don't get me wrong, but certainly against teams that are going to sit and camp in, almost a bit like what we do. He can certainly stretch the game by making a run, and all of a sudden that can open space. It might be for Son, it might be for Kane, or whoever else is in those attacking positions. So I think, Dele definitely offers something different to the team. It's just, where do you fit him in? Because, I see it a lot on social media where people are, clamoring for Dele to play, get him in the team. But then you ask these people, okay, what's your best starting 11? And Dele doesn't feature. So, you can't have it both ways for me. But yeah, obviously I'd love nothing more than Dele to turn it around, because I feel like that's my guy. Do you know what I mean? So I think he's got the capability to do it. Definitely. It's just a case of whether we'll see it or not, and that's the difference.
So, Adam, I want to come to you. It's good what Wes points out, the fact that Dele does add something different. It's just we haven't seen it for so long, whether that be because Mourinho hasn't seen it in training, or whether he just doesn't think he's at that level at the moment that he was. So I want to come to you, Adam. What would you like to see come the end of the season? Would you like to hold on to Dele? I know every Spurs fan, like Wes said, wants to, but do you think it's maybe the time to cash in and maybe try and get someone else?
I still wonder if his heart was set on a January loan, and that's another thing that's also affected him as well. He thought, I'll go out and get regular game time. That didn't come through for him. It's like I say, it's a tough one with Dele. You can see that he has got that talent. It's just, as one of the comments said there, it's his mentality, it's his mindset. I think if he can sort that out, then yeah, he will be back to where he is. But at this team at the moment, with all the players we've got, if they're all fit, I'd rather have Lo Celso in over Dele, because I think he creates the attacks a bit more. But like I say, it's a tough one because he has got that talent. It is there. We've seen it. So cashing in maybe a little bit too early. Maybe give him a run to the end of the season, see what he does. If he doesn't bring any contributions towards the end of the season, then we know where he's at. And yeah, try and move him on in the summer and replace him, because we still haven't replaced Eriksen, really, have we? No, another cracking attack of midfielder.
That's true. And I also like, Adam, the way that you've incorporated the loan move, because obviously I was under the impression it would be good for both club and Dele, because obviously I feel like he needs a change of scenery, a new drive, and obviously going to see Poch would probably help him as well. And I thought that for both club, it means that it takes him out of the equation, so Jose doesn't have to worry about him with his attitude, obviously, if he doesn't play. But it also means that it puts him on the shop window for other clubs. It would also mean that if we did decide to sell him come the summer, we'd have more money in because his price would rise if he has a good cameo at PSG, obviously. So I like the fact that you've said that, obviously. And with Lo Celso, I think we have missed Lo Celso, I think, to an extent. But like you said, we haven't managed to replace Eriksen. I mean, whereas I like the fact that people try and compare Ndombele to Eriksen, but I just don't think they're the same player. What do you think?
Nah, they're not. They're not the same player. And Ndombele's like Dembele, like the greatest of all time, Musa Dembele. But I think Ndombele's got a bit more technical ability than Musa Dembele. Now, Musa Dembele, you know, my favourite player probably ever that I've seen at Tottenham. I absolutely love him. That's why I call him the greatest of all time. But Ndombele's got that cute pass in him. I don't think Dembele had that. Dembele was just, you know, as every Spurs fan knows, it's, you know, as strong as an ox, but with ballerina feet. And I think Ndombele's got that in him. You know, I think, and probably Ndombele's probably got a bigger backside as well, which helps him out in terms of turning away from players. But yeah, I think they're complete. Like Ndombele and Eriksen is like, it's just completely different players. So I don't think you can compare them in that respect. I just think that Eriksen, you know, in his time at Tottenham, I look at it and I never thought that he believed in himself. I think because if he did, he would be spoken about in conversations with, along with De Bruyne and Silva. He was that, like, his ability was that good. His belief was like, you know, nowhere near it. So I think that's the difference for me with Eriksen. But yeah, I think Ndombele, as I said, completely different player to Eriksen. I wouldn't even entertain a debate like that usually, because like I say, it's like completely different. You know, it's like comparing Mark Noble with Harry Winks. It's like, you know, completely different really. So yeah, that's just my take on it.
No, that's good. I'm glad you came out and said that, Wes, because I've had a lot of people trying to make this assumption, but it's not the right thing to do because they're totally different players. And Adam, I want to get both your thoughts on this. I want to know what you'd like to see in the summer. Obviously, with this result today, we're all pretty down in the dumps, which is true because I just don't think it was a performance that really managed to get anything over the line. Obviously, the second half was something different. That was good, but the first half, again, we threw it away. So, Adam, who would you like to come see into the club in the summer?
Who would join as a transfer?
Yeah, so who would you like, as in we know what the squad's looking like at the moment with the deadwood, who would you like to come in to try and replenish the squad?
From centre-backs to goal, there's a few positions I think we need to sort out. Centre-backs is a definite. Right-back is interesting because I thought Tanganga didn't do too bad today. We expect that probably Sergio Aurier might get moved on in the summer. So if he goes, we'll have to look to get a replacement for him. I think Max Aarons is a massive shout, but I've seen that he's been rumoured to be moved to Bayern Munich. You see it all over social media. So whether he's going to join us over Bayern Munich is highly unlikely. Goalkeeper was interesting that you mentioned earlier with Lloris making errors. Maybe Nick Pope from Burnley, quite a strong goalkeeper, always puts in good performances.
No, the thing is with Pope, right? Don't get me wrong, he's a very, very good goalkeeper for Burnley. But I've had this discussion with a few people before because of the goalkeeper debate. And I always, like, if I took Nick Pope out of Burnley, would I get almost the same results, if not better? And I don't know with that one. Like, I think Nick Pope suits Burnley and I think he suits them fantastically well. But then I think if he's to make that jump, I think there's a lot of things that would need to change from Nick Pope for him to get to, say, go on to that next level. And don't forget as well, he's 28. So if you're going to sign a 28, 29-year-old Nick Pope, you're only going to get three years out of him at the most. Martinez from Villa, well, he's ex-Arsenal, so probably not. Probably not. But that's just my take on Nick Pope, to be fair.
It all depends. Sorry, Hollie.
That's right, Karen. No, you
can. I was going to say, it depends on the situation with what happens with Bale as well. Maybe a new right-sided attacker, depending whether he's going to, if he hasn't got the hope of Bergwijn, or Moore has not given more impact, maybe we need a right attacking midfielder that will influence the game a bit more goals and a bit more assists, because that's something else that's seriously lacked this season. If you look at the statistics on our players that normally play right side, they don't seem to be chipping in with that. That's a big thing of the attack as well. I'd like to see one of those come in the summer.
No, I like that, Adam. That's a good look on things. I think maybe the goalie issue is something that's maybe going to come later, just in the fact that there's so much other rubbish we need to sort out first. But obviously, Wes, we've spoken about who we want to get in. Is there certain players that you definitely want to get rid of in this summer?
Yeah, hold on. Let me get my scroll here for this one, because there is so many that we need to hook. Yeah, Hugo obviously been rumoured to Paris, 18 months left on his contract. I'd probably cash in now because he's 34. Right back, in an ideal world, you'd probably bin both, but it's probably not going to happen. Yeah, I think Doherty's probably been the probably for me the biggest disappointment probably out of the 7 alongside Bale. Yeah, I don't know who sanctioned that deal, but they want their head tested. But whoever's at Wolves, like, you know, big them up because they've got a fantastic deal out of us for Matt Doherty, because I can't see what Jose was on about in the documentary about him being aggressive. Well, he's a fullback or wing back. That's kind of his job to make a tackle kind of thing. And yeah, I just don't know what anybody's seen in Matt Doherty to go, yeah, we'll have him, to be honest. So it's either credit to Nuno for turning him into, you know, actually a half decent wing back or fullback or whatever, or yeah, like I say, some people have got some serious questions to answer. Centre halves, yeah, I think, you know, I could be here all day going through the whole team pretty much. I think it's probably easier, Hollie, to say the players that we want to stay as opposed to the ones we want to get rid of.
Yeah, that's probably a better question, isn't it?
So yeah, like I say, centre halves need addressing. You know, there's, you know, big areas there. Left back, Davis has looked shaky for the first time really in his career at Spurs, because I've always thought he's been like a steady player. I don't think Adam agreed with some of my choices there by the fact that he just went off for a second. But yeah, I think obviously midfield, I mentioned Sissoko. Yeah, I'd tell you what as well, I think, and I said this perhaps maybe last season, is that certainly in the summer, it was like, if there was a half decent offer for Lucas Moura, I'd maybe look at getting rid, because I think he's still living off Ajax, and don't get me wrong, he'll always be a Spurs legend. We'll never have to buy a pint in Tottenham ever again. But yeah, I just don't think he's done anything since really. So yeah, those, like I say, it's probably easier for me to count. I could probably count on probably 2 fingers the amount of players that we want to stay, but we need a big clear out. I can't see it happening, though. That is the only problem, just because I don't see clubs with a lot of money at the moment. So it will be very, very hard for us to shift players on, you know, and obviously the ones that we want to get rid of. So that's kind of my take on it. And Adam again seems to not agree because he's gone off again.
Yeah, never mind. I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. But obviously we'll just wait for Adam if he's going to pop back. But I want to say thanks again to Wes and Adam for coming on today. Obviously it wasn't the best result. It wasn't the best way to talk about things, but I think we've done all right just to try and cover everything. So Wes, if you want to say where everyone can find you or see all your content and things.
Yeah, so yeah, I could be here a while because I've got, you know, people can find me on Instagram at Wezo32, Twitter at Wezo10. Also do some coaching based in Milton Keynes. So if there's anyone from Milton Keynes watching there, do some one-to-ones and other bits of coaching provisions. WM32Football across all social media platforms for those. As you know, Hollie, do a podcast as well because you've very kindly jumped on that as well. So if there is anybody that perhaps would like to jump on a podcast, then just let me know and I'll try and squeeze you in.
No, thanks again for coming on today, Wes. I've really enjoyed it. And Adam as well, where can we find you and all your stuff? Is he there?
He's frozen. He's frozen.
Well, I know you can find Adam on Twitter at The Real Phone Jacker, and you can find him on Instagram as Adam as well, which he's named himself too. So please make sure you go check out Adam's stuff because his football knowledge is there. Oh, he's here again. Oh no, he's there.
Sorry,
hey!
My Wi-Fi is doing about the same as Tottenham's defence, letting me down constantly.
It's all good. I just was saying where they can find you on Adam. Do you want to give a little...
Yeah, I've got Adam on Instagram, and I've also got the Real Phone Jack on Twitter as well. And that's about it.
Nice. So make sure you go and check these guys out. And thanks again for everyone that's tuned in today. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button because I'll be doing some more content like this. But that leads me to say, hopefully Tottenham can try and prove it around in the next couple of games. But until next time, I will see you all soon. And thanks again to my guests.
Yeah, thank you.